Enforcement in Fort Myers Beach. And we are convening this morning at 9 a.m. as scheduled on September 2nd, 2025 for a set of hearings on the agenda prepared for today's meeting. Before we begin calling individual cases, we have a few preliminary matters to attend to. The first being the approval of the minutes from our last meeting on August 5, 2025. Are there any objections to approval of the meetings from last month's hearing?
No objections, Your Honor.
All right, and without objection, the minutes are approved. Are there any other preliminary items that we should look at before we begin going through the cases?
No, Your Honor. Just for your information, we are currently meeting this morning at the Bay Oaks Recreation Center. Next month, we will finally be in our new town hall. So if you can see the murals and the mirrors and configuration's a little bit different today than in the past.
Okay.
And also, we do have one of our property owners has asked to participate by Zoom today. And we have talked to our AV technicians, and they are able to accommodate him. That would be the First Baptist Church.
All right, very good. Why don't we then move into the compliance cases? It looks like we've got several on the agenda today. We can go ahead and move through those.
Yes, Your Honor.
We'll go ahead and we can.
Sure, Your Honor. Today I have providing testimony today. I have Officer Yazzo, and if he could be sworn in, he has done the investigation on these various cases that are on today's agenda.
Very good. Officer Yazzo, if you raise your right hand for me, please. Do you swear to affirm the testimony you're about to give me the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, Your Honor, I do.
All right, you may proceed.
Your Honor, the first case on the agenda today is case number 2024-1095. The property owner is Tenio DeMilo Trust and Lynn Jackson DeMilo Trust. The property address is 5790 Estero Boulevard. The violation was for a non-compliant structure, and I will defer to Officer Yazzo to provide testimony regarding the status of compliance.
Your Honor, in case number 2024-1095, that property is now in compliance. The property has removed any of the non-compliant structures.
All right, very good. So we can go ahead and dismiss this case due to compliance, and if the town would submit on this one and the others that may be similarly disposed, just submit a proposed order to me and go ahead and get those dismissed.
Yes, and Your Honor, the town has determined that when our property owners are able to come into compliance, we would not be seeking an administrative fee. So we're not asking for any type of administrative fee on this one, nor on the others that are coming before you.
Very good.
Okay, your next case, Your Honor, is 2025-0264. The property owner is Constantini Edmund D. Jr. and Constantini Patricia A. The property address is 8387 Estero Boulevard. The violation was for a shipping container, and I defer to Officer Yazzo.
Again, Your Honor, referring to case number 2025-0264, the property is now come into compliance. The non-compliant structure has been removed from the property, so we're seeking dismissal as well. With no administrative fee, please.
Very good. Now, I'll find the property is in compliance. We'll go ahead and dismiss this one as well due to compliance. Very good.
Our next case is case number 2024-1102. The property owner is MHC Fish LLC, care of Kroll. Property address is 7295 Estero Boulevard. The violation was also for a shipping container. The recommendation is dismissal due to compliance. Officer Yazzo.
Again, Your Honor, referring to case 2024-1102, we are recommending dismissal because the property has come into compliance. The storage containers have been removed from the property, Your Honor. We're not asking for any administrative fee as well.
All right, very good. I will dismiss this one as well. And again, good to see several cases in compliance. Great news.
Your next case, Your Honor, is a violation case. This is the first time this case is coming before you. The case number is 2025-0286. The property owner is Brazo Alan Adrian and Brazo Milihala Bernal. I apologize for mispronouncing. The property address is 277 Ibis Street. The violation is a non-compliant structure, a shipping container. Your Honor, there is no one present here today. However, I will defer to, we believe notice was proper of today's hearing based on the documents in the record. However, I want to go ahead and skip over to Officer Yazzo to advise you of the status of this one.
All right, very good. Officer Yazzo.
Your Honor, again, referring to case 2025-0286, 277 Ibis Street. The property is now come into compliance as of yesterday. I've completed an affidavit of compliance as of September 1st. We have been in contact with the owners. They did bring everything into compliance before the prescribed time for the magistrate. We will be sending in forward. I'd like to address that now with this affidavit of compliance. I've already turned it over to the clerk, and they will be sending a copy to you electronically. If I can enter that into evidence now, sir.
All right, very good. We'll see that now. So 277 Ibis Street is in compliance.
Yes, sir. And the recommendation is that we dismiss the case at this time with no fee, Your Honor.
All right, very good. I'll dismiss this one as the others. And again, if you can just submit the proposal on that, be very, very exciting.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, so the next two cases, the next one is the First Baptist Church of Fort Myers. However, the second case is your certification of lien. We do have representatives present regarding the property owner for 2815 Estero Boulevard. So I know that electronically or technology-wise, we would have to add our property owner for First Baptist Church. So if we could take those out of order, would that be okay with you?
I'm sorry, which one do you want to take up?
I would prefer to go ahead and take the certification of the lien in advance of the First Baptist Church, simply because we have individuals present today. And the representative for the First Baptist Church will be joining them by Zoom, and that one may take a little bit longer time. Oh, he is up there?
Yeah, they're here.
Well, hello, Reverend Pritzer. Are you opposed to coming after the Himmelstein matter, or?
That makes no difference, that's no problem.
Yeah, either way is fine with me, whichever way you want to present them.
Yeah, if we can, Your Honor, let's go ahead and hear the Himmelstein case.
All right.
Okay, this is Fort Myers Beach case number 2024-0994. The property owner is Himmelstein Associates LLC. The property address is 2815 Estero Boulevard. The violation was for a non-compliant structure, which was a storage container. I will defer to Officer Yazzo to present the following, the continued sequence of the case.
All right, just very quickly, who do I have on behalf of the Himmelstein Associates?
Your Honor, my name is Jeff Walker. I'm the property manager.
This is the
Jeff Walker?
microphone here, if you guys want to join.
Yes.
Okay, very good. I couldn't see it.
And you also have the property owner himself, Mr. Himmelstein, here as well, please?
Yes, Robert Hiddleston.
I want to start.
Very good.
Fine. I apologize. Your Honor, I think we need to swear them in.
Yes.
All right, if you all raise your right hand, strongly please, you swear or affirm that the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
We do.
We do. I do.
Very good. Please be seated. Also, yes,
Your Honor, again, regarding case number 20240994, this is a certification of a lien with a property that did come into compliance post an order that you directed. The order was, the original trial commenced in January 7, 2025. You then created an order regarding the non-compliant structures with a certain time frame. We allowed for the time frame that you gave, and on May 5th of 2025, we came back and we were advised that the property was in compliance at that time by the property owners. We took photos at that time, and we did a compliance, affidavit of compliance at that time. That being said, there was a term between the order description and when we came to compliance, and that was a total of 65 days with a $250 daily fine set from 3/1/2025. You gave them to 5/5/2025, and it comes to $16,500.
And that's
would-
including the,
And that's including the administration fees, Your Honor.
so Your Honor, the town's request is for certification of the lien for the non-compliance of 65 days, $250 per day, in accordance with your order, which there is a copy on page 260 of the agenda materials today, and the $250 fine for a total of $16,500.
let me hear from the respondent.
Hello, Your Honor. We have a timeline for this, and we tried to meet the timeline that the city provided. Our original permit to restore the building that we're working on was to include those containers as part of our warehousing in a manner that was approved by FEMA, raised and anchored. We had them, but they had to be put in a location, and we got a temporary permit for them to locate them where they were, at which time FEMA decided to change that everything had to come off the beach. They were loaded with material, so it was not very feasible to move them. We then decided to up our timeline to locate them where they had to be. So we applied to the city for a permit. We got a permit application in, and it was on the portal as of February 14th. We were going to have them raised up by the time the timeline that you had given us. Unfortunately, in working with the city, we found out that it was not feasible. At that point, as soon as we found out that it was not feasible, we got rid of the containers and moved the material out of them. Since we owned them and did not rent them, it was a little harder to get rid of as quickly because we had to sell them. We had no other place to put them. So that's where we're at right now. We got rid of them as soon as we possibly could. We tried to work with it to put them in our location that we originally had applied for, that was on our original permit, which did not work. So we were asking for any leniency that we can possibly get today. We did incur severe losses in having to get rid of the containers and some of the supplies within it.
Hi, I'm Robert Himmelstein. Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to let you know that when we sold these containers, we lost $11,000. Again, we own these containers. They were part of our project. Even when we got original permit for our project, these containers were going to be mounted, so that they would actually be part of our project. Then once the FEMA issue was raised, we actually were going to raise them above the FEMA base level and build a platform for them. But we never got a permit for that. And eventually before hurricane season, we did what we had to do, which was we lost $11,000 to sell them. So I was hopeful that you would actually waive any type of fees to us. Thank you.
Does the town have any questions for either of these gentlemen?
We don't have any questions, Your Honor. The town believes that this item is properly before before you for the imposition and certification of the lien itself, based on the fact that your order did require the removal of the container on March the 1st. It was not removed until May the 5th. I have had conversation with the property owner and their representative regarding an alternative process that is available under the code of ordinances that would allow them to go to the town council and request not an abatement, but a reduction of any lien that you were to impose.
I was just going to ask what the town's procedure was for any lien or fine reduction request. So that goes not to the special magistrate, but directly to the town council?
That is correct. That is the process here in Fort Myers Beach. I do recognize that other jurisdictions allow the magistrate to reduce the liens. I don't think that's the case here in Fort Myers Beach. That's our position.
If I could just say one more thing, I would request that you actually waive the fee. We couldn't get the permit from the town. We worked hard to try to get the permit for these containers, and that's not our fault. I would like to avoid going back to city council because, as you know, we've got a writ of certiorari that's actually being heard tomorrow for other issues that regard town council, FEMA. There's a pool built that we've challenged that's next to one of my other properties.
Your Honor, I object to this testimony because that is not the matter that's before us. Today, the matter before you is the shipping container and not any other issues that the town may have with the property owner.
And just to refresh my recollection, did we have a status hearing in March, or did we defer that until later?
I believe we did have a status meeting, and I think that
I was
Representative
there,
appeared.
yeah, and I explained that we were working.
And advised you that they were working on
We
it.
had a permit in on the portal. We were working with the city to get it.
Correct. And Your Honor, we don't believe that there's any bad faith on their part. We think that, yes, they were working towards it. However, as you know, because of our situation with FEMA, it's pretty much a zero tolerance situation with these shipping containers. And when your order says removal, it says removal.
Right. All right. Well, I will, I'll go ahead and certify the lien, because I think the information presented by the respondent is really in the nature of a lien reduction and mitigation request, which I'm advised in Fort Myers Beach is addressed not to the special magistrate. I do hear those types of cases in other places, but apparently here it goes to town council, where I'm assuming that the matter would be placed on their agenda, and you would present the same information to the town council and request that there be a reduction based on the circumstances. Again, it's really a matter of who has the authority to do that. From what I'm hearing, I haven't gone through the code of ordinances carefully to double check that, but I'll accept that representation that process exists, but it goes to the town council. I think that would be the place to address these arguments and seek a reduction for those reasons. Basically to make the presentation that you work diligently, but you're adding to some hurdles beyond your control, et cetera. But I think here today, lacking that authority, I'll go ahead and certify the liens as the compliance timeframes have been established. It doesn't seem like that's in dispute. It does sound like there may be some grounds to, look at the amount of fine, but it appears that that's better addressed in the town council that would have the authority to make that reduction. Anything else on this one?
No, Your Honor.
No, I'm very disappointed, Your Honor, but thank you for your time.
I don't Obviously, this one is not prejudiced to you going to the town council. I think there's a procedure for that. I think that's where those arguments should be addressed. And again, I'm certainly not prejudging that issue. It sounds like you've got some things to say there that are worth taking into account. I just don't have the authority to make that reduction, but the town council does.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Okay, Your Honor, and that brings us to the last case on today's agenda, which is Fort Myers Beach, case number 2024-1086. The property owner is First Baptist Church of Fort Myers. The property address is 134-138 Connecticut Street. The violation is for a non-compliant structure. Your Honor, we did have a clerical issue where this matter was omitted from your agenda initially. And looking at the minutes from your prior case, you had requested that it come back to you today. We did have communication with the property owner and his attorney, and we requested that they waive any type of notice deficiency, which they agreed to, simply to be able to move this matter forward. With that said, I will defer to Officer Yazzo to bring you up to speed as to the nature of the continuing noncompliance.
All right, Officer Yazzo.
Your Honor, again, referring to case number 2024-1086, which was heard before you, the status of compliance is still non-compliance as of yesterday, September 1st. The non-compliant structures are still in place at that, and I've forwarded copies of said non-compliance to the clerk, which will be referred to your case file here within the next hour or two. I know that we have a representative from the property owner for First Baptist Church of Fort Myers, 134-138 Connecticut Street. Parcel strap number 294-624-W100151-001A. And again, I've presented this into evidence now as well, sir, for your perusal.
All right, if you would just remind me, I know that we had this case up previously. Why didn't we complete the hearing? There was some issue, I just don't remember what it was. I'm looking at the file here.
So there was an issue, Your Honor. Initially there were two violations on the property. One was for the presence of a shipping container, which has been removed. And however, there is a remaining structure there. At our last hearing, we had the town's floodplain administrator present, who testified basically that the remaining structure appeared to be in violation, that she had not received a certification of elevation. And because of that, she could not determine if it had been in compliance. And that's where we were. We were diligently waiting to receive that from the property owner. However, it has not been forthcoming.
So we were waiting for the certificate of elevation to determine whether the floodplain.
Was in compliance as the property owner alleged at the hearing. The town's opinion was that it was not in compliance.
And so I guess ultimately, Officer Yazzo's testimony is that the property remained, the structure is not in compliance and remains in violation of the floodplain regulations.
That is.
Yes, sir. That's correct, Your Honor.
All right. And who's going to speak on behalf of the church? I think Pastor Crystal, we had you one time before. Are you speaking?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
So yeah, I think there's just a big misunderstanding and communication. We went back and had the minutes of the meeting revised, not revised, but reviewed. And I can't say her last name, so can I just call her Miss Kelly and be okay with that? The flood administrator. She was, the question was she didn't know the floodplain on property and that she thought we should get an elevation certificate. But at that meeting, we said out loud that we had turned in an LDO that had the most current floodplain elevation certificate for the property because of the ongoing development. And she stated to me and took my email address that she was going to go and look at that elevation and then just tell us how tall the trailers need to be put in. So that's where we left it. And, you know, if it was our fault that we didn't follow up, it was because the town got embroiled in this FEMA matter again. And word got around and we got a letter that stated, you were no longer even going to be able to be in compliance. So we felt like we were in limbo and couldn't get a straight answer. And then we were told by the town that we were going to get straight answers coming forth. Lo and behold, 2 days ago, I got an email from somebody at the town that said it doesn't look like your structure is going to be able to be put into compliance. And so we just asked them to put everything on hold until we got before you to say, you know, we've got an ongoing code case. You know, how can we have in between such dates be told that we shouldn't even be worried about putting them up, moving them, or anything like that? So, Your Honor, all I'm asking, we're ready. It is tell us how tall they've got to be at the spot where they've got to go to, and we're ready. Our developers are standing by. We have the equipment. We know the people that we have to call and say go. And they'll simply just move them and raise them to the elevation that the town's happy with. Literally, the problem we have is we can't get an answer from the town as to what they're happy with.
Are you saying that you agree that the structure, and just remind me of looking at the pictures, the structure that we're talking about is what exactly?
It's three trailers put together to make the church. So they are tied down and sitting on blocks, you know, like a regular, they say temporary, they're permanent temporary. So they're strapped to the ground, just like the trailers we were sitting in that we previously had our meetings in at the town house. So those type trailers. So they're 60 or 90.
They're white, they're kind of a white and light color sitting on these blocks.
Yes, they're great trailers.
Right.
They used to be an FPL training facility, so they hold 150 people together. And so, you know, we agreed with the town that if that's the case, they just need to be raising up more locks. You know, and at that meeting, Ms. Kelly thought, you know, possibly another 3 feet would do it, but she was going to clarify that. And we just never got the clarification. You know, adding 4 feet of block is not a problem. You know, having them restrapped and put back where they belong.
Another 3 or 4 feet, they're gonna be up pretty high on blocks, though, aren't they?
You know, Your Honor, I argued that with the, you know, with her in the first place, you know, a flood coming through with those trailers where they're at now is way better than putting them 6 feet in the air. But if that's what the town thinks that FEMA is okay with, and that's where they want them, we'll do it. You know, I firmly believe flooding is going to be worse with 6 feet of block than it is with 3 feet of block. But they are strapped to the ground, so they can't go anywhere. But once again, we're not arguing that. It's just tell us how tall we want them to be happy, and we're ready.
Let me go back to the town real quick here, just to, again, maybe to refresh my recollections. I know we had all this testimony and a prior hearing, and some of the details are a little, you know, fuzzy on them, you know, it's been a while. Is it the town's position as of right now that the only remaining issue is the elevation of these trailers?
I believe that that is correct. The remaining issue is the elevation in order to come into compliance with FEMA regulations.
So, and again, just, I guess as things stand today, there hasn't yet been an order with a finding of violation.
No, sir, there's not.
So, if I could make a finding of violation and set a compliance date, and somewhere in between that date and the date of the order, the church could, at least in theory, find out from the building department or whomever has ultimately the decision-making authority, just how high they've got to raise the trailer, and decide whether they want to do that or come into compliance some other way. Is that kind of where we are, bottom line?
I believe so, Your Honor. Unfortunately, Ms. Kelly was not able to be here today to respond. I know that Pastor has also made reference to an email that he recently received from the town. We don't have a copy of that. I don't know what he's referring to.
The email, just to go back to you, Pastor, was coming in, what did the email say?
The email received, just the other day,
Who was it?
it was from I thought it was from the town lawyer, to be, it was from a law firm, that was stating that it didn't look like we were gonna be able to even become compliant. But, what I gotta say, also included in that email was some threatening verbiage, because we have an order, or an appointment with the LPA next week. And it sort of said, if you can't come into compliance, we're gonna have to probably recommend denial at the LPA, which, to me, that just reeked of, we shouldn't be doing that. With this is totally separate issue, especially when we're working and trying and we're just simply not getting information. That email just said, we don't, and I thought also they sent us a certified letter. Nobody had the building through the week, so we had to get it this past weekend. And that same letter was, it doesn't look like we're going to become compliant, or we're not going to renew permits. And I think there's also some confusion because the church had multiple temporary permits for RVs, because we also had housing units on there. And so for a while, we had some temporary RVs. We don't want those renewed. And so I think maybe the town's got some confusion as far as what permits we're in violation of, or what code enforcement we're in violation of. This is the only code enforcement we have to deal with it. And like I said, there's no argument with it. It's just information we need to get it done.
Your Honor, I know what email he is referring to, and this was an email that I believe I had sent over to his attorney asking for the waiver of the notice for today's hearing, in view of the fact that he does have a land use matter coming before the Land Development Code, or the local planning agency next week. And we just wanted to kind of have clarification of if he was willing to waive the notice or not. The email that he is referring to is on looks like page 93 of the agenda materials, 93 of 263. And I object to the representation that the language in it is threatening. I do not believe it is. I think it was just stating forth what the options are. On the second paragraph, it states, if you're willing to waive notice, we can notify the special magistrate that we will be adding this case to the agenda on September the 3rd. That was an error, it should have been the 2nd. If you are not willing to waive notice, we will still proceed with review by the LPA on September the 9th. However, in my opinion, the unresolved code enforcement matter may delay a decision by the LPA. I do not find that to be threatening. And that is not a consideration, but it will most likely come up in conversation.
Yeah, it's the following paragraph also that states that I don't think your client will be eligible since any extension of existing permits requires the client to be flood.
That is correct. The next paragraph is referring to, if I may, the next paragraph is referring to the recent policy decision that was made by the town council to provide extensions to individuals who had received an emergency temporary placement permit or a temporary placement permit, to allow them additional time to come into compliance. However, not to come into compliance, but to continue to use that particular structure or unit, which is not currently authorized by the code, except for the temporary emergency temporary placement permit ordinance that we do have in effect. That would only give them an extension of time to do it. However, one of those requirements is that they do become compliant with FEMA regulations. An example of my comments would be an individual whose home was damaged by Hurricane Ian, who has a travel trailer on their property. As long as the travel trailer is able to be moved by a pickup truck in compliance with FEMA, the town is willing to allow that travel trailer to remain on the residential property, even though the residential zoning code does not typically allow travel trailers to be in a residentially zoned area. So that was just my comment to try to advise that, and I believe that my email was directed to pastor's attorney. So again, I
Okay,
object
some
to
of that-
the
yeah, some of that
characterization
might-
of it.
Yeah, maybe some of that is sort of collateral, if the issue boils down to the elevation of the structure and how high it needs to go in order to be compliant. If that's really all that's necessary, it seems pretty straightforward. I mean, but that's why I'm asking, maybe there's more to it, is that the towns are saying that if he raises it up to whatever the height is, 3 feet more, whatever, then his structures will be compliant.
Yes, Your Honor, if he raised it properly to the base flood level plus one with proper strapping, then he would be compliant in that manner. That would have to come through with an engineer's report that is engineered to say that it's strapped properly at the proper elevation. Other than that, they have to be removed.
And Pastor Kritzer, you're saying that you're willing to do that.
Absolutely, Your Honor, and let me apologize. I mean, I can't do the word as far as threatening, but it did feel like it was being held over our head for the LPA, and I don't think this was the only email that got about it. So if Miss Nancy, if you're in the room, there was a bunch of lawyer emails going around. I have no idea who they are, so I apologize.
So for the record, your apology is accepted, and let the
So
record
as
so
part of that
reflect.
next to last paragraph also states that it would be helpful as well to know if your client provided the town's flood reviewer with a copy of the elevation certificate, which may resolve the matter, which is where I really got confused, is because it was the last magistrate hearing that I talked to the flood reviewer, who stated she knew that we had turned in an LEO, and that the town should have had our flood certificate. So yes, we provided it back in June, as far as we were concerned. So when the holdup happened, or when, this keeps coming up that we need to do something, I just got really confused, because the town's had all of our paperwork. It didn't matter, but they had paperwork. We weren't gonna go get a whole other, surveyor to do a flood elevation when we just had one done and turned it in with our LPO.
Your Honor, Ms. Federici.
Hi there.
Sorry, Ms. Kelly is here. If you could swear her in, she's willing to provide testimony on behalf of the town concerning this matter.
All right. Would you raise your right hand for me, please? You swear to affirm the testimony you'll give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
And would you state your full name for us, please?
Kelly de Federicis.
All right. You may proceed.
Give your testimony.
Oh, is Mr. Kreister? Sorry about that. Is he finished? Because he was still talking, so.
We'll kind of go back and forth, but if you want to fill us in or fill me in particular, as I understand it, the violation, which seems not to be in dispute concerning the elevation of these trailers, I guess, these structures, it's kind of boiling down to needing to know how much higher they need to be ready, just in order to meet the floodplain regulations. I know we spoke at some length about it at a prior hearing. The pastor says they've submitted an elevation certificate in connection with some of the paperwork. Maybe you can kind of help me understand where things stand in terms of what they might need to do in order to get into compliance.
Okay, so a surveyor is the only one who can advise how many feet of, like per se, off the ground that they need to go. So as discussed previously, he needs to hire a surveyor to go out there and mark where those trailers need to go. If the mechanical or any machinery servicing that structure is to the underside, sometimes they put ductwork under there, that underside has to be base flood elevation plus 1 foot. And that would equate to 12, but a surveyor is the only one who can go out there and mark that elevation. So if he hasn't had a surveyor out there to determine how much higher he needs to elevate those structures, there's nothing from the town that can be done.
Well, I think he's saying that they submitted an elevation certificate, but you're saying that you don't think that they've done that?
Well, no. So right now, if we have an elevation certificate on record, that doesn't tell us that's an outdated elevation certificate because he needs that underside elevation to 12. So right now he needs a surveyor, probably the same one that provided the current one that we have on record, to go out there and tell him how much higher he needs to put that structure. A surveyor is the only one who can mark that elevation.
You're talking about underside elevation, which is any ductwork or anything under the structure?
Yes, so sometimes on those manufactured trailers or whatever, what we're calling trailers, structures, they have their mechanical and ductwork under the underside. I don't know about this one. I'm just saying if it is, the underside would have to be BFE plus 1. If it is not, then the finished floor has to be BFE plus 1. But I don't know. That is, a surveyor can go out there and determine that.
Wouldn't that have been in the elevation certificate that was previously done?
The existing elevation certificate is the existing floor where it sets now. Since the ground fluctuates, the surveyor has to go out there and show them where 12 is in relation to what is existing there. I don't know if it's 3 feet, 4 feet, I'm not sure, but the existing elevation certificate is the existing finished floor that needs to be elevated. But a surveyor is the only one who can mark that elevation. So he can have somebody go out there and jack up the structure, but without a surveyor going to mark that exact spot it needs to be jacked up to, nobody knows where it's supposed to go. Only a surveyor can. I can tell you 12 feet and 12 feet, but only a surveyor can mark that 12 feet.
Go ahead.
We could, this sounds like an exact conversation that we had when I went back and looked at the video. We said this exact same thing. And then the town stated that if we had a flood elevation certificate, then they could tell us, literally, they said, we could tell you how tall the finished floor needs to be because there isn't anything underneath the trailer. It's just a trailer. So finished floor level, base flood plus 1. We have the flood elevation certificate for the entire property in your hand. Every 10 feet is marked what the elevation of the actual land is. So I don't understand, we didn't use a surveyor to put it in the first time.
Well, and that's,
The town just simply said your elevation is 3 feet, so you need to be at least 3 more feet at that time. Now it's changed, I understand. Where the trailers are going is specifically marked on the elevation certificate, what the flood level is or what the ground level is. You simply take that plus whatever it needs to be, and that's how tall the finished floor needs to be. And then a simple measuring stick tells us if we're right or not, based on each individual location on the land. I mean, a surveyor never came back out after a structure's been put in and stated that the finished floor is a specific height. That's the contractor's job. In our case, it would be the mover / contractor who will put it up and certify. We put the bottom floor at this level over the ground where the elevation says it's 4 feet, you tell them you need to be at 12, so now the floor is at 7. I get it, I understand it. Everybody has the numbers. All I need somebody to do is say, make sure your finished floor is X, and it will be.
Yes, and so that is correct. So you do have to put your finished floor at 12, and a surveyor is the only qualified person to go out there and mark that elevation. We can count that many feet up from the ground, but again, a surveyor is the only one who can prepare an elevation certificate, and that is the only document to confirm what that finished floor elevation is. So we can do math, and I agree with you 100%, but a surveyor is the only person who can prepare that document and tell us what that finished floor is.
What are you,
They already did that, you got it.
what are you saying? You're saying that you need an elevation certificate to certify to the town how high the structure is after it's been raised,
Correct.
right? I mean, in other words, he needs somebody to come back and say, we've done this survey and taken these measurements, and now the finished floor is X feet above the base flood, or whatever they certify. Is that, am I saying that correctly?
Correct. If he wants to take the chance and try to guess where 12 is, and if the elevation certificate comes back at 11.9, it won't be compliant. So it is recommended to have the surveyor mark 12 feet, so it is accurate throughout the whole property, because the ground does fluctuate.
When you say 12 feet, is that 12 feet from where?
So we'll just say in the flood world, that's 12 NAVD, which means North America Vertical Datum. And when FEMA determines base flood, they start out at 0, like in the middle of the water, and then they come into 12. So if the ground is at 4 feet, it's 7 feet above that. But a surveyor is the only one who can do that measurement. Again, the ground could be 3.9 feet, and they come back a tenth of a foot below that 12. That's not going to be compliant. So if he wants to install the trailer without a surveyor, that is 100% on him. The final elevation certificate must say 12 NAVD for the finished floor.
All right, and so again, if I understand you correctly, Ms. Kelly, you're saying that the elevation certificate that they have submitted measures the elevation of the existing structure,
Correct.
and that what you need from them is an elevation certificate that measures it as raised.
Correct.
And then all you can tell them is it needs to be 12 feet NAVD.
Correct.
And they need to get a surveyor to come out and tell them, and tell the contractor where that mark is, so that they can raise it to that mark, and then take an elevation certificate and give it back to you, and if it shows that it's at 12 feet NAVD, then it's in compliance.
Correct. And the
If
surveyors.
it's at 11.5, it's not.
Correct. And if the surveyors don't measure from the ground, they actually have certified benchmarks they use, and satellites and lasers. So it's really not just taking a tape measure and measuring up from the ground. So there's equipment involved. So it's,
Well, yeah, I mean, I get it, it's not like taking a tape measure,
Yeah.
there's more to it than that, but, I mean, that's why you need to have a professional that knows what they're doing to do it, right, so I get that. So, again, if I can, if I'm oversimplifying, you let me know, but if I understand what the town is saying, it is that the current structures are too low.
yes,
They're inside the 12 feet NAVD. If he raises them and properly straps them down to 12 feet NAVD, they'll be in compliance, and then this case can be closed as compliant. He's got an elevation certificate that shows where the existing structures are, but that just shows they're in violation.
correct.
And you're telling him where it needs to be, it's 12 feet NAVD. He just needs to go out and have a surveyor get that spot and get the contractor to lift it to that, right? That's the town's position?
Correct.
Yes, Your Honor.
So if I go back to you, Pastor, and again, it sounds to me like you can bring it into compliance, the town saying you don't need another elevation certificate until you raise the structure. And you raise it to 12 feet NAVD, I guess is what they're saying. I mean,
Yes, sir.
is that something you can do?
If they will send me in writing that you will be in compliant if your structure is at 12 feet above sea level, above sea level, which is what we're talking about. Yes, I'll have it done. stamped by either a contractor or a surveyor. My surveyor told me they don't do structure elevations, they do ground elevations. And then a contractor does, literally, from the point on the ground that they state is 3.9, uses a tape measure and goes from 3.9 up to 12, and that's your floor. So you take your surveyed stamped papers, and the contractor certifies that we went 8.3 feet above that spot that the surveyor marked on the ground. And we have all those marks. So literally anyone can check it. A code compliance officer can go out and check to make sure that the floor is at 12 feet by using a floodplain elevation and a tape measure. Everybody should do that.
Well, the town is saying, again, if I understood correctly, that you would need an elevation certificate for the structure after it's raised.
I hear what they're saying, but it doesn't make any sense because surveyors do land. They don't do elevation certificates of the structures. The contractor does that. I mean, if that's what I have to do, I'll hire the surveyor to come back out. But it's not usually in the scope of the surveyor's job.
So with regard to that, the elevation certificate is a FEMA document prepared by the federal government, and a surveyor is the only one who can certify that document, and it can be found online. So if you do have questions, there is a document online to confirm that, but a surveyor is the only one who can complete it. And that is the only document that FEMA will accept also as a final elevation of a finished floor.
All right, anything else, Pastor?
I'm assuming that the floor has to be at 12 feet at the lowest point from the ground. Is that correct? So since the ground does change probably a foot overall, it needs to be 12 foot from the highest point?
No, that's where a survey comes out. A surveyor uses a benchmark and it will be even across. Just because the ground fluctuates doesn't mean your finished floor is going to fluctuate. So again, the surveyor can mark the height of the finished floor with his benchmark and his lasers and his satellites.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. 12 feet, you got it. We stamped it. Or my surveyor stamped it.
All right, well,
But I need something in mind because it cost me $12,000 to do. And Your Honor, I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of confidence. If I spend $12,000, move the trailers, have them stamped at 12 feet, and then have something else come along, we're gonna be sunk. And we just can't afford it.
right, well, I think the order that might be the right that you're talking about, and I'll receive the county's exhibits, I'll make the final violation because I don't think that's a dispute. I would like to ask the county about, time frames for compliance. What is the county suggests is a reasonable time frame for bringing any compliance at this point?
Well, of course, we would want 30 days. However, I do, and Kelly, you may know more than I don't know what the workload is on surveyors currently in the town. I know that we have had to get surveys on other projects and there's been a backlog. Do you think that 30-day period would be reasonable or should it be 45 days?
I think that Mr. Kreister, sorry if I mispronounced that, should advise us when he has scheduled for the trailers to be moved and elevated. That's the first step. So what is your schedule with regard to elevation? When do you plan to have that done?
Well, I will make a call this afternoon to the moving company. And then we'll sort of kind of be on their schedule as well. But I would definitely say within 30 days to be able to have them moved and up.
Okay.
To where we know we're above flood. And you're right, surveyors are probably at least 6 weeks out for a certification. I mean, even mine, and I'm usually one that is working on this main project, so they're still 6 weeks out for something we do.
Well, I think the first step,
Again,
yeah, because if they're being moved and elevated, I think
flood elevation and then we
that's,
have our finished floor and tape measure. So we'll be able to tentatively, all together, be able to see 12 feet easily. But just waiting on that stamped piece of paper, we can wait. That would take us a bit. Your Honor, also, the trailers are moving. They're not just going up. They're moving out of the way because of our LDO. The trailers are moving forward on a different plot of land, which doesn't really involve what we're talking about in the LPA. So I'd also like some assurance from the town that they're going to state to the LPA, this really doesn't have anything to do with the development. It's two separate parcels now.
Does it have a different address than what we're discussing currently?
Say that again?
Does it have a different address than what we're discussing currently?
I don't know that the addresses have changed yet. You should, y'all seen where we split the parcel, and the front is part of the new development. The church is sitting where the actual new building is going to go, so the temporary trailers are moving forward of that line.
Your
So that they
Honor,
can be out of the way.
I'm going to object and ask that we don't mix the LPA, the land use issue, with the code violation issue. The two are really separate processes, and the code violation is what is before you today.
All right, do you want to have a two-stage compliance deadline where we have plus 30 days to move and elevate the trailers and another period of time, plus 60 or something to get the elevation certificate on file?
Your Honor, I think we just want the 30 days, and if he's not able to come into compliance within that period of time, we will come back to you and ask for certification based on non-compliance.
I mean, if he needs to have the elevation certificate to be fully compliant, it sounds like you might not have it in 30 days if the surveyors can't get that done that quickly. That's my concern.
I can at least provide the town with the schedule that they tell us they'll have it done, because I can get on their schedule very quickly.
Your Honor, I think, Your Honor, if I could please, Officer Yazzo, I would ask that we do 30 days for compliance, or 30 days for evaluation with compliance, and then we would go to 60 days for final compliance, do the reevaluation at the 30-day mark if we could, please.
I like that.
Do a 60 days for final compliance?
Yes, sir. I think that gives enough work room for everybody involved to square this away, but with a 30-day status check, so we know that there at least is forward motion on this, and it's not just a push out to just keep continuing this process on and on and on.
So at 30, status review is 30 days to ensure that the structures have been moved and elevated, with a final review at 60, or a final compliance date at 60 days?
Yes, sir, that's what the town would like to see.
And what we want to say, Pastor?
That was the reason, Joe, I think your name is Joe, right? I'm sorry. That was the reason I was stating they have to move into it. This is not a push out by the church. They're in the way of our building. So we're just as eager to get them out of the way and us to be in compliance and keep having church as you all make sure they're in compliance, I assure you.
All right, why don't we, so I'll make a final violation and set a status. Let's set the compliance date at 30 days out with a status review at the same time, so, hopefully there's more council next month's hearings and the calendar moment. And then we can have the ability to status conference to decide whether we'd start running fines, but we'd have a final review in 60 days. If the trailers hadn't moved in 30 days, then, that would be one thing. You're telling me that that's not gonna be the case, but if we confirm that they've moved and elevated, then things will be on track at 30 days out. We'll have a final review in 60 days, by which time the elevation certificate should be available. If everything checks out, then should be deemed compliant. If not, we have to get reevaluate the issue of the fines. Is that consistent with the town's requesting?
It is, Your Honor. However, the town clerk has advised me, or has motioned that your next hearing will be in 29 days rather than 30. So if we could just simply have it at your next hearing, which one day less. It's hardly first.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
The next hearing is 29 days and not 30?
Correct, Your Honor. The next hearing, this is Amy Baker, Town Clerk. The next hearing is on October 1st, which is 29 days from today.
Okay, so not quite 30 in other words. Okay, well, we'll probably have one, we'll go ahead and set it on the next, next agenda for that 30-day review. I mean, I'm assuming that if you're within 24 hours, you can probably tell us, but it sounds like you're going to have it done by then, by October 1st. All right,
Yeah,
so we'll just do that,
fluctuates.
call it a 30-day review, it's not quite, but it's probably close enough. But yeah, let's hear it next month, so we don't go beyond that. Anything else that the town is looking for at this point on the order?
Your Honor, the floodplain administrator would like to make something clear to the respondent.
Yes, and also to you as well. Looking at the map, the current location of those structures, I was unaware that they would be moving from their current location. And the flood zones do fluctuate throughout that property. And so depending on where or where the trailers are, the structures are going to be moved, could change the required finished floor, because there is a flood zone boundary that runs through the property that increases the flood zone from 11 to 12, which would require the finished floor to go to 13. So I don't know where the future location is proposed, and without that information, I cannot advise what the finished floor is, because there are actually three flood zones on that property.
We're staying in the AE zone, we're going due west 100 feet.
Yeah, that doesn't really help me out, because they are all AE zones. So I need it marked and shown on a survey to ensure that it's not going to encroach into any of the higher flood zones.
Or as long as they're in the same zone that they're in right now.
Yeah, if it's an obvious situation, then we wouldn't need a survey. But if it's somewhere where we can't tell on an aerial if it's encroaching into the higher flood zone, we would need an actual survey with the flood zone boundaries.
We can look, you've got the actual survey, you've got the actual floodplain survey that shows where the trailers are gonna go. They don't show where the trailer's gonna go, but they show the whole property, the whole 3.5 acres.
Okay, if they have the flood zone boundaries on it, we just need to know where the proposed is so we can advise accordingly.
Yes, and I'll send you a picture of it via email.
Thank you.
Is it staying in the same zone? Do you know?
Yes, they stay in the same zone.
And you think it's clear?
It is very clear.
Okay. All right. All right, anything else, Pastor?
No, sir, and
All right, so let me ask the town that if you could just submit along the others, a proposed order, I'll take a look at it. Again, at the end of the day, it's fairly straightforward. But we have some findings on this one, and hopefully in the next 60 days, we can get it closed out.
yes, sir. Can we get copies on all over that you're asking for?
Yes, when we submit to the court, we'll provide you with a copy as well.
All right. Anything else we have in this case, Dan?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thanks for coming in. See you free again. And let me ask, do we have any other business? It looks like the other line items are empty, other than adjournment.
No, Your Honor, I just take the opportunity to ask Officer Yazzo, what does next month look like for the judge?
Your Honor, we have at least 6 that are going to be coming forward to you next month as new cases. As always, we hope for compliance before that, but they're going to be noticed properly with due process for their hearings coming up here very soon. So we will get that out to you as soon as possible so you can start reviewing it.
All right, Sounds good. Maybe you'll get some of them, in compliance before we have to hear them, but maybe not.
And,
And if not, we'll be ready to hear them.
and Your Honor, just so you know, we are going through a CRS audit with FEMA now, so we may ask for an extra day at some point with you, we could, because we would like to put anything that's involved with the CRS audit for you in those cases, and that could be a substantial number, and we will have more correspondence with you about that.
Okay.
Can
Yeah,
you
we
remind
can-
me the
I'm
CRS?
sure we can add another.
Community rating
that
system
was,
program?
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem.
And the CRS is a community rating system. It's about our, it comes back to how we're rated within the National Flood Insurance Program. We've come off suspension now within that case, and now we're working towards getting our rating back. And that's part of what this audit is about as well. So those cases will also come to you as we come to them, and then once that we cannot get to come into compliance with that, we'll come before you, Your Honor.
All right. That sounds good. And again, if we need an extra day, we can do that. All right, very good. Well, looks like we've worked through everything, so if you can send me some proposed orders on today's cases, I can just turn around for you as quickly as I can, and we are adjourned. I will see you in October.
Thank you, Your Honor.